DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. BYU headed to the Sweet 16 Thursday night, 5 o'clock, to face Alabama. Dick Harmon joins us now, longtime columnist for the Deseret News. Dick, good morning.
Good morning, David.
The energy is incredible. The Cougs are rolling. Put it in perspective for us. How many times have you seen something like this across the course of your career?
Twice before, back with Danny Ainge. What was that, 90 or 81?
Yeah,
81. It was a great run by that team.
And then 30 years later.
A lot of talent, a lot of good faces on that, and then back in the Jimmer day.
Yeah. And you look at those teams, those were what we call BYU teams. Let's call it like it is. A lot of white guys, a lot of LDS guys, if not all, but a lot. And this one here, that Kevin Young has pulled this off to be able to get all this talent, guys that didn't come from Lone Peak and
Orem and Provo.
Yeah, I mean they're coming
three
from
high schools.
literally all over the world, and to be able to pull all these guys together and then get the administration to sign off. He told me that they added 3 full-time positions to get these guys from all over the place. I never thought that I would see this type of – not that they have a good team, because they've done that from time to time, but just the makeup of the team when we heard the honor code was such an impediment, blah, 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 blah. How surprising is this to you?
Well, it's very surprising. You remember all the days and the months and the years that we talked about how BYU was cheap and how they couldn't compete?
Yeah, throw that in too, yeah.
But that's gone, at least from what we know and what we've read and what we've studied and what we've been told and what we've looked at. And we look at the bench, and they've got like 50 million guys on the bench.
I know.
And they're all dressed up, and they're all coaches, and they all got clipboards in their hands, and they look like they're busy, and they're getting paid to do stuff. And all of a sudden, adjustments are being made not only at halftime, but during the middle of the game, and people are coming with ideas that that have NBA experience, G League experience, Olympic experience, and then you get the roster thing. I mean, the idea that NIL has had such a big impact on basketball is just an understatement. For him to be able to pull players from all over the globe in different countries, a couple of countries in Africa all together, and Russia, Moscow, Russia, and to put them all together and get them trained and get them to have chemistry and role playing and acceptance of each other and putting other guys on the bench and them, for the most part, being happy with it. And then all of a sudden you've got this energy that's created inside the locker room and a confidence level that's high, and they believe they can beat anybody. They probably can't, but they believe that they can. That's all gasoline for making a run, and they're doing it.
I'm famous for talking about money, so let's talk about the money and the whole cheap thing. I want to dive into this a little more because I've heard other people talking about this, and they say, well, BYU had the money, they just wouldn't cheat. Okay, that's certainly one discussion, right? That's one branch off this tree. There's that. But money could also be spent to hire and retain coaches, assistant coaches, to grow the size of the staff. BYU could have done that back in the day without cheating. And they didn't, and now they do. And is it as simple as saying they went into the Big 12 and this is what you have to do to compete? You have to spend the money. Is that why the pivot in spending money? Or is there another piece of the puzzle I'm missing here? What happened?
No, I think you hit it on the head, Dave. I think when they made that step, when they worked so hard since 2010 and they were not included, I think they made a commitment. They said, if we get in the Big 12, then we're going to act like we're a member of the Big 12, and we're going to come through with the resources to give people what they need to compete. We're not going to go in there to be 14th and 15th and 16th all the time and play like that. We're going to give them the resources to go to battle and get the equipment that they need and the personnel that they need. I think you hit it on the head right there at the first part of your statement. They said, we will compete. We're not going to go in and just be a member and be happy with it. If we come into the party, we're going to bring our costume.
And I think that's great. You know, if you're going to do it, do it. But the thing that still surprises me is doing it with the kids that they're doing it, not the traditional BYU kids. Because you take a look at DeBanza, right? And his dad's been out there saying, we know the finalists, Carolina, Kansas, I don't remember the other school, but they were all basically the money was the same. Okay, so if it used to be those types of kids wouldn't sniff Provo. It was largely JC kids, the non-Mormon kid, or maybe some kids who grew up in Utah or had some connection, at least their neighbors, what have you. They would be a part of BYU. But to get these kids like DeBanza and Catchings and so forth, it blows me away, because just a handful of years ago, or maybe even 2-3 years ago, I go more than, I would say a handful, because I think Mark Pope started down that road. It still surprises me, because what we heard of is, no, they're not going to want to come here with the honor code. But now, Mr. Harmon, they're sitting on the bench wearing earrings. What is going on in Provo?
And this is where I think it really comes in. You got to credit Brian Santiago and Tom Homo and their relationship with Danny Ainge and the others, the ties that they have in the NBA. When they found Kevin Young and they had studied him and they had looked at him and they saw his background, because Kevin Young's coming in here, and it's a whole different ballgame. He's getting Durant and Booker on the phone with these recruits, having them call them or have them call them, or showing up at practice or visiting the practice facility. And the guys are saying, hey, Kevin knows what he's doing. He can develop you. He developed us. And listen to him. And if you want to be in the NBA someday, yeah, you're going to be there. But why not have a guy that knows what it takes to do it on a daily basis, talking to you every single day? And I got to tell you, I think that's worked. I think that's music to the ears of some people. But then we've seen it in application. Look at the development that he's put into Richie Saunders. I mean, here's a guy that is coming off the bench for Mark Pope. We knew he had talent, but all of a sudden he's playing like he's a first-team All-American.
Yeah.
They can't stop him. You get a guy like Keita. I mean, Keita's got tremendous talent and abilities, but he's still not there yet. But look at the progress he's made,
right?
Both defensively and the shot block. You go down the line, all these guys all of a sudden are playing far better than they were under Pope. And that's not a knock on Pope. I think he's got the staff, the experience, the knowledge to push these kids in the direction that he knows he needs to. And then when he runs the game and he makes the adjustments and he does the preparation and the scouting reports, this is all top-level stuff.
So for the people driving up and down the freeway who's, they dream of their kids winning state titles at Lone Peak or Provo or Corner Canyon or wherever, and then going on and playing at BYU, and the kid's just, 14, 13, 12, whatever now. Is this going to evolve into BYU, the Global All-Stars? Is there still going to be a place for the traditional local kid who goes there, maybe a return missionary? Or is just college basketball's changing quickly and BYU's changing quickly, and what we knew for decades is just not going to be true going forward?
And that's a great question. We can see in the early run that he did get Kozlowski to change from USC. We see that he got Chris Burgess's relative, the center. I can't remember his name.
Chamberlain.
6'10". Yeah, you got him to come. So you've turned a few kids. You sold them that this is the place to be early. Whether he can do that down the road when you're bringing kids in from Mali, Africa, or Moscow, and they're supposedly lottery picks, I don't know. But I go back to the pillar that Tom Homo talked about, that it has been a basis of what they've tried to do with women's soccer and volleyball and with football and with basketball. It is this, that you have got to get the very best LDS kids. That's number one. You're not going to get them, but you have got to try to get the very best LDS kids that you can. Number two, you've got to get legacy kids that have a tie there, that they have BYU in their blood. They have a history there. You've got to get a few of those kids to kind of be the anchor of their whole program. They're not going to go anywhere. They want to be a part of there. They're going to agree with everything that they signed up for and be an example on the team. And then the third thing, and it's not necessarily third, but you've got to get the very best athletes that will fit into BYU and live the honor code and be a part of the community and love it and be there. And you've seen that in Igor Denham. Here's a kid that's come in, and I've seen pictures of him at Travis Hansen's house having dinner, and he's dating the Gibb girl, and he fits in, and he loves it, and he likes it. And, catchings for the most part, I believe, is sold into that too. He hasn't had a lot of playing time. He could be a little discouraged, but maybe not. Maybe he's growing up and having growing pains, but he's come in and signed on. So you're going out and getting the very best that you can that will fit in. So those three pillars are what BYU's game plan is, and you've got to have those Lone Peak kids, American Fork kids, Lehigh, Spanish Fork. You got to have them. You're going to go after them. You're going to continue to do that. Now, how they play out, we're not sure, but Richie Saunders proving that, hey, I'm one of those guys. And look out, I got Tater Tot contract.
I know. That's crazy. I'm wondering if you think that maybe it's just a confluence of time, the right timing, in that, you saw that story. I think it was, what was the guy's name? Lillenquist, who said in the ESPN story, "You're not going to outbid us." And then we asked Rondo Fehlberg, what did you think of that quote? I was blown away. And Rondo said that whatever I was blown away, basically multiply it by 1,000. And that's what Rondo was when we saw that quote, "You're not going to outbid us." Maybe this was just all waiting to happen, and once it became NCAA and types of approval that this is what was going to happen, all these billionaire dudes who are super rich in the Utah County area were just waiting to be able to do it, and they couldn't do it before, and now they can do it. So if you look at it from that perspective, maybe it isn't a surprise.
I think you're onto something there, PK, because I do think there's been I've got stories after story of guys that have contributed money and written checks, and that money has gone and just disappeared into this vast athletic department thing that'll pay for women's gymnastics and other things. But I think they've created a thing where, no, if you contribute here, it'll go to basketball, it'll go to football, and so those guys are not as frustrated as they used to be. But then you look out, and you guys have seen this if you've been in the Marriott Center. That whole area has been transformed. Those premium seats
right
down along the court side. I mean, they booted all the media guys that we were used to being there right behind the bench for years and years and decades, going back since that building was created. That's no more. Those are given to high-paying donors that are contributing tremendous. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars to set up there with their corporation friends and their families and go into their little special room and have their popcorn and their drinks, and they're free on us, and that's nothing for what they're giving them, those premium seats. Then they knocked out the ones underneath the basket, did the same thing. You got people in there paying a lot of money to sit down there, and you see that at the Jazz games and other NBA games, and they've kind of marketed that. You pay us money, you contribute, and we'll put you at the front seat of a big time game experience, and they brought it.
Yeah.
I mean, the Cosmo Act, that's a first class. I don't think you can see any kind of act like that in the world. I don't know who that guy is or who he trades the baton off, but that's big time.
At Utah, they added lacrosse because someone came in with a big time donation and basically made it happen. Doubt it, whatever they did. Is there a chance that we're going to see somebody who's got the kind of money PK was just talking about, "you will not outbid us" kind of money? I mean, one person gives the quote, but we've definitely been left with the impression there's way more than one person writing those kind of checks. Is there a chance someone's going to come in and say, "I want to see BYU baseball go to the College World Series," or "I want to say women's soccer has been close, I want them to win the title," or "women's volleyball's been close"? Is this money going to spill over to the other sports? Do you think they're going to focus on football and basketball because that's where you really cannonball into the deep end and get the country's attention?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would imagine there are people interested. We've seen it in other sports, especially at the University of Utah. Their women's basketball program, they've got a sugar daddy that's paying big rewards there. I think if you look at Utah's golf, I'm switching to Utah, but you look at their golf team right now, I think they have won individual titles. They won tournaments. They're ranked in the top 10. That's because they've got some sugar daddy that's helping them, a couple maybe here and there. So, yes, I would imagine it can happen at BYU because we've seen it happen in the past 12 months in a big-time role. So yeah, Dave, I think it can happen with any school now that the the sheets are off and people are doing what they can do with their money and what they want to do. It's meaningful to them. It's important to them and their family, and it's important to their companies. I absolutely think that can happen.
The D News had a story. They quoted the church administrator. I'm not sure. I think he used to be an editor at the D News, saying we're not going to go the pay-for-play model, but that's what they're doing.
Gilbert.
Yeah.
Clark.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that what they're doing? And I got no problem with them doing it.
Well, I think sometimes his quote has been a little bit taken out of context, but he said the church is not going to do it. And they're not. The church isn't doing this. This is all coming from
just the
from
boosters.
people who care about the program, people that are outsiders. They're
rich
playing
fans.
the game. Exactly.
That's what a booster is, right?
Yeah.
Define a
It
booster.
used to be Cy Kimball. Now that there's like 50 Cy Kimballs running around.
There you go. Maybe 100 Cy Kimballs.
Yeah,
Bless his
okay.
heart. Rest in peace.
Yeah, right. I mean, he was the man back, way back, but now there seems like there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, and the other thing too, sometimes you don't talk about, but the new thing where you're paid and you're forced to pay and you have to pay, salaries to these athletes, and what is it, the tune of $20 to $21 million a year spread out against all your sports. I mean, that's in addition to NIL money that might be made. So
right.
This whole thing has changed. It's completely changed. I mean, you're going to knock out. I saw an article where schools are divvying up that $21 million. X amount goes to football, X amount goes to basketball, and then little small increments go to the other sports here and there. And these guys, the athletes, are getting paid that money. I mean, it's so much different from 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And when we were growing up, all of us three growing up, this is completely a different world. And most of it is probably for the good for the athlete.
Right.
Some of it's probably bad for the fan. Prices are going to go up. But it's a completely different thing.
I'm curious when we look back. Right now, Sweet 16, 11-2, that feels like 2 great years. I mean, just a great season for football and a great season for basketball. But we look back, is it going to get to the point? There are schools that win so much. The Sweet 16 is just considered, well, yeah, we're Kentucky or we're Duke. We ought to be able to do that. And the way the money is going, is this the start of a whole new level of winning / expectation? Now, Sweet 16 is a party. In a few years, it'll be like, well, it didn't work out this year. What went wrong? Let's examine this. Let's figure out where we blew it so this doesn't happen again. I mean, are the expectations going to change that dramatically going forward? Because it feels a little bit like the top of the mountain right now, but maybe it's just all new.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Dave. You win more, you expect more. There's going to be a tremendous amount of pressure for Kalani Sitake to win 11 games, to be in the playoff. I mean, that you kind of almost got there, and now people are going to say, well, if you win 9 or 10 games, you're a failure. There are going to be people like that. Are going to be disappointed if you're not in the playoffs. So yeah, I mean, that's the bar, and that's probably a good thing, because you go out now, you're expected to play that way, work that way, perform that way, and you've kind of done it, and so you need to walk in those shoes. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. You've done it, you better do it, and you're expected to do it. And that's certainly that way in basketball now. I mean, getting to the Sweet 16 is a hard thing.
Yeah.
It takes luck, it takes a lot of skill, it takes talent, but it takes luck. I mean, that game at Wisconsin, that easily could have got away from them in the closing minutes when Denham threw that ball away and a couple of other things happened. I mean, it happened fast. And a lot of those calls were kind of screwy, and they did go BYU's way, but that can happen. And so it's so hard to get there to the Sweet 16. To repeat that next year, that would be a big thing. But when you got the number one player in high school, a guy that's projected to be a number 1 draft pick, in basketball, it doesn't take 5 guys. It takes 1 or 2 that at that level, and surround them with good guys, and all of a sudden you can be there.
Throughout BYU history, when they had an athletic director opening, they basically promoted from within. Santiago's sitting there paying his dues for several years. You think he's the obvious choice? Are they going to go outside? Or maybe somebody else inside?
I don't know. It's there are a couple of names that prop up that are prominent LDS people that are working in athletic departments across the country that are probably getting a pretty hard look. There's probably wisdom in going to the outside and bringing in somebody who's been working in, say, the Big Ten or the SEC for many, many years, and bringing them in to get new eyes and a new pulse and a new vision. But there's also wisdom in taking a guy like Santiago or Liz Darger, who have paid their dues and have been there, that understand the ups and the downs and the political ramifications, the social and community things. They've been through those wars. They've counseled kids. They've been around them. They understand what they're going through, what they're asking of them, and promoting them. And and Santiago's name should be there just as high as anyone. Chad Lewis, other people like that. I mean, if you look at what Santiago is helped to do to bring that annex and the basketball practice facility, the expansion of seats inside the arena, even though they've got less seating, they've got more quality seats. And then the courtside, whatever they are, that are paying a ton of money. I mean, he's been a big part of that, and you can't ignore that. And so yeah, I can see both. I can see them making a decision either way, and that's something the board of trustees and the president are going to look pretty hard at. And they've been used to bringing in. Rondo came from the outside. He was one of the first people that came from the outside to get that job, and they could do that again.
Dick, we appreciate the time and the perspective. Thanks for joining us and talking about the New World Order.
It is that's what it is, Dave. Thanks for having me, you guys.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Dick Harmon joining us, Deseret News longtime columnist.